On a sunny morning in late June, the farm was full of laughter and life. Twin sisters Emma and Ellie, both 8 years old, were running around the hayfields wearing their straw hats, jean shorts, and big smiles. They lived on a small farm with their MOM, Sarah, who raised them alone after their dad passed away 2 years ago. The girls loved farm life. They fed the chickens, helped water the crops, and played games among the hay bales when their work was done. Their favorite game was hide and seek. They would laugh and shout as they ran between the barn and the pasture, always looking for a good spot to hide. That morning, Sarah watched them from the kitchen window as they started another round of the game. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready or not, here I come. Emma shouted, her voice echoing across the yard. Sarah smiled and turned away to finish making lunch. But when lunchtime came, only silence filled the farm. Sarah called for the girls, but no one answered. She walked outside, checking around the barn, then the chicken coop, then the cornfield. Still no sign of Emma or Ellie. Her heart began to race. She called louder, even used their full names, which she usually saved for when they were in trouble. Nothing. The farm felt too quiet. Sarah's stomach turned with fear. She ran to the neighboring farms, asking if anyone had seen the twins, but everyone said no. They had just been there, laughing, running, alive, and now they were gone. Within an hour, police officers arrived. They searched every part of the property, including the barn, the pond, the attic, even the well that had been sealed for years. Volunteers came to help, including friends, neighbors, and strangers from town. They formed lines and swept through the tall grass, hoping to find a shoe or ribbon, anything. Drones flew over the area. Dogs were brought in to track their scent, but even the dogs seemed confused. They would follow a trail to the barn and then stop, as if the trail ended in midair. Sarah stood by the fence each night, looking into the distance, hoping to see two little figures running back home. But night after night, there was nothing. Emma and Ellie had vanished without a trace. Days turned into weeks. The police had no leads. Some people whispered that maybe the girls had been taken. Others thought they might have fallen into the pond and been swept away. Sarah refused to believe they were gone forever. She slept near the front door each night, just in case they came home. She stopped eating much. Her eyes looked sunken, her voice shaky. She kept their room clean, waiting for the day they would suddenly burst through the door, laughing about the game they had played. But that day never came. People began to lose hope, but Sarah never did. She told everyone, "They're still here. I can feel it." One morning, exactly 2 months after the twins disappeared, Sarah woke up with a strange feeling. She walked outside and looked toward the old barn, the same way she had 100 times. But this time, her eyes went to a different place, a pile of hay bales stacked in the corner that hadn't been moved all summer. Something about them seemed wrong. Her feet moved on their own as she crossed the yard. She grabbed a pitchfork and started moving the hay, her heart beating faster with each swipe. And then she saw IT, a small wooden door set into floorboards, almost completely hidden under straw. Her hand trembled as she reached down and lifted the lid. Sarah's hand shook as she pulled open the old wooden door beneath the hay. The door creaked loudly, as if IT hadn't been touched in years. A blast of cool, stale air hit her face as she stared down into darkness. It was a trapdoor, one she had never seen before, even though she lived on that farm her entire life. She knew every nail, every stone, every tree. But this trapdoor, it was like it had been built in secret. With her heart pounding in her chest, she called out into the hole, "Emma? Ellie?" Her voice shook, echoing down into the silence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a sound came from below. It was weak, a scratching, then a thump. Sarah dropped to her knees. "Girls, is that you?" she cried. Then came a small, tired voice. "Mommy?" It was Ellie. Sarah almost fell into the hole from shock. She grabbed her phone with shaky hands and called the police while yelling to the voice, "I'm here. Hold on, baby, Mommy's here." Officers arrived within minutes. They brought flashlights and ropes. 2 men went down first, while Sarah stood at the edge, sobbing, her hands covering her mouth. The hole led to a small, dark cellar room made of old stone. It had no light, no windows, and only a tiny opening for air. In that room were two small girls, dirty, skinny, and curled up on the floor, but alive. Emma and Ellie looked up as the light hit their faces. Tears streamed down their dust-covered cheeks. "Mommy," Emma whispered. "You found us." The officers lifted them out carefully, wrapping them in blankets. Sarah held them both tightly, refusing to let go as she sobbed uncontrollably. The girls were rushed to the hospital. Doctors said they were malnourished but strong. They had survived on rainwater that leaked through the walls and a few stale crackers left behind in the corner. It was a miracle they were alive. Everyone in town was shocked. News reporters showed up, asking questions, taking photos. How did they end up there? Who put them there? How did no one hear them? The police launched a deep investigation. They examined the cellar and found strange markings on the wall, symbols and numbers that looked handwritten. It was clear someone had used that room before. The lock on the trapdoor had been broken from the inside. Sarah remembered that the barn had once belonged to her grandfather, who had passed away long ago. She wondered if there were secrets buried in the farm's past that she never knew about. When the girls were strong enough to talk, detectives asked them what happened. Their voices were soft, their eyes empty. "We were playing hide and seek," Emma said. "I hid behind the hay and Ellie followed me. Then the floor moved." They explained how they had found the trapdoor by accident. Curious, they had opened it and climbed down inside, thinking it was part of the game. But the door shut behind them, and they couldn't open it again. They had screamed for hours, but nobody heard them. Days passed, then weeks. They learned to be quiet. "We thought maybe you forgot us," Ellie said, tears in her eyes. Sarah held their hands and promised, "I never stopped looking. I never will." As the police continued their search, a dark mystery began to unfold. The trapdoor was built from old wood that didn't match the rest of the barn. The hinges were modern, almost new. It had been used recently. But who would build a hidden room on a family farm? And why? There were no fingerprints, no cameras, and no clues. Only questions. Sarah couldn't sleep. Even though her girls were home, she felt something deeper was still wrong. Someone had planned this. Someone had lured her children there. And that someone might not be done. After the girls returned home, Sarah kept them close at all times. She no longer let them out of her sight, not even to play in the yard. Emma and Ellie were different now. Quieter, jumpy, and sometimes waking up screaming in the middle of the night. They were afraid of the dark, of sudden noises, and even the sound of the wind against the windows. Sarah did her best to comfort them, but she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had happened in that dark cellar was only the beginning. Police had sealed off the trapdoor and set up security cameras around the property. Officers came daily to check the barn, the fields, and even the house itself. But days went by with no new answers. Who had built that room? Why had the girls been trapped inside? And how did no one notice for 2 whole months? Detective Hawkins, a quiet man with a deep voice and sharp eyes, took over the case personally. He went through the farm's history and discovered something unsettling. Decades ago, back when Sarah's grandfather owned the land, there had been rumors of a family secret. Locals said that during the 1940s, the farm was used to hide people from the law, some good, some bad. It was also said that children sometimes went missing near the area, but no one ever found out why. It was written off as stories, legends. But Hawkins began to think that maybe those old stories were true. He brought in historians, architects, even ground-scanning radar equipment. What they found under the barn changed everything. Beneath the trapdoor and cellar was a network of tunnels. Long, dark passages that led to hidden rooms and storage areas buried under the farm. The tunnels had been sealed off long ago, but someone had unlocked them recently. There were signs of movement, footprints in the dust, and even a few empty food cans that had not been there before. The discovery shocked everyone. Sarah watched as men in uniforms disappeared into the earth under her feet, mapping out the twisting corridors. Some tunnels led nowhere, others opened into small rooms filled with rotting wood, old toys, and strange symbols scratched into the walls. It felt like walking into a lost world that had been hiding in plain sight for generations. The police began to suspect that whoever had lured the girls into the trap had been using those tunnels. There were no cameras underground, no lights, no signs. Only darkness. It would have been easy for someone to move around without being seen. Detective Hawkins asked the girls again if they saw anyone while they were locked below. This time, Emma said something she hadn't mentioned before. "We heard footsteps above us," she said. "Sometimes at night. Then we heard whispering." Ellie nodded. "Someone was there," she said, "but we never saw them. They just watched." This statement chilled the room. Whoever it was, they had kept the girls alive. But why? Why not hurt them? Why not take them away? What did they want? Sarah began to feel like she was living in a nightmare. She kept her doors locked, her lights on, and slept with a baseball bat by her bed. Strangely, though, nothing else happened. No more strange noises. No more missing items. It was almost as if whoever had been behind the whole thing had vanished. Detectives went through the farm's guest list from years ago, checked background records of former workers, and even dug through old mail, but they found nothing. No suspect, no clue, no explanation. All they were two scared little girls, a secret tunnel system, and a hidden trapdoor under a hay bale. But then one night, just as Sarah was starting to feel like her family could finally heal, something strange happened again. As she tucked the girls into bed, Ellie whispered, "Mommy, he's still here." Sarah froze. "Who, baby?" she asked. Ellie looked toward the window. "The man in the hat," she said. "He watches from the trees." Sarah felt her heart stop for a moment as Ellie spoke those words. The man in the hat. She looked out the window but saw nothing, just the dark shadows of trees in the moonlight. She quickly shut the curtains and locked the windows. "It's okay," she whispered to the girls, though her voice trembled. "You're safe now." But deep inside, she didn't feel safe at all. That night, Sarah stayed awake, sitting in a chair between her daughter's beds with a flashlight in her hand. She kept staring at the window, half expecting a face to appear outside. The night passed without incident, but the feeling of being watched never left her. The next morning, she went to Detective Hawkins and told him what Ellie had said. He took her seriously. He ordered a team to check the surrounding woods and install more cameras around the farm, facing the trees. They found nothing at first, but 3 days later, one of the motion sensors caught something. A shape, a man, standing at the edge of the woods at 3:13 a.m. He was tall, thin, and wore a wide-brimmed hat. The image was blurry, but clear enough to show he wasn't just a shadow or a tree. Whoever he was, he had been watching the farm. He never moved closer, never tried to enter. He just stood there. Then he disappeared into the darkness again. Detective Hawkins showed the image to Sarah, who felt a chill go down her spine. "That's him," she whispered. "That's who Ellie saw." Police searched the woods for days but never found him. No footprints, no campsite, no signs. It was as if he had vanished. But Sarah knew he was out there. The girls began to open up a little more. They said the man had been in the tunnel sometimes, whispering words they didn't understand. He never showed his face, just a hat and the shadows. He never hurt them, but he kept them there. He said we had to wait. Emma said, "Wait for what?" Sarah asked. He didn't say. Emma replied. He just said, "Soon." The police now believe this wasn't just a case of accidental trapping. IT was planned. Someone had put the trapdoor there for a reason. Someone had lured the girls on purpose. But why? IT wasn't for money. There were no ransom notes. No one asked for anything. And if it was to hurt them, why keep them alive? Nothing made sense. Sarah spent her days trying to act normal for her daughters, but her nights were filled with fear. The man had vanished, yes, but his presence still lingered. The farm didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place full of secrets, shadows, and silent watchers. 2 weeks later, another strange thing happened. One of the hay bales in the barn was moved. Not by Sarah, not by the police. A camera showed nothing, But the bale had shifted slightly, as if someone had been looking underneath again. Sarah panicked. She moved her family to her sister's house in town. The farm was now under full police guard, but Sarah didn't care. She wasn't going back. Detectives continued the investigation for months, searching for the man in the hat, trying to trace the origins of the tunnels. But the case went cold. They never found him. They never found anyone. Years passed. The girls grew up. They never wanted to talk much about what happened under the hay bale. They never played hide and seek again. Sarah eventually sold the farm. The new owners sealed off the tunnels for good, filled them with concrete. But sometimes, locals say, on quiet nights, if you stand near the old barn at just the right time, you can still see a figure in the trees. Tall, still, wearing a wide hat, just watching.